Christian rang me today. Well, I wanted to talk about this video that was playing here because I put it on, or will be, or it might have already been out, or it's going out on Sun and Moon. Christian wanted to talk to me about these caves which they'd found, which he mentions a bit in our conversation. What it is my video recorder is set up for the computer, which means that you don't hear me, and I've cut me out of most of this video. But I like some of the things Christian was saying, so I stuck my recorder on. The bits like you can't hear is that I'm saying, well, is it the mining? I feel that there is a gap behind Russia of ice on information I've seen, Google Maps. Maybe that's where the flood happened that caused this world flood. The water came over this barrier and flooded everywhere, because everywhere seemed to have tsunamis. 3/4 of Scotland has gone. It practically on maps touched Ireland. They wouldn't make that mistake if it suddenly was 100 miles away, would they? They're not going to draw maps that it's touching Ireland if it was 100 miles away, whatever, 50, whatever how many miles it is now across the sea. It's a lot of Scotland to fall into the sea. That would have caused tsunamis on its own. That amount of Scotland falling into the sea. Maybe an enormous great sinkhole opened up there or something. Who the hell knows? But mining, and I'm talking about these things. But to this video that's playing, because obviously I do mention it there and you don't hear me. It could be that information coming forward now is heading that they just want the Tories out. So we have a general election, and then listening to everything, because don't forget the news, the Tories are bad, get them out, whatever. Everybody will vote Labour, or that's what they want. But they're the same. They're in the Roman Empire. They all work for the same people. And to be honest, there's not much difference anymore between the Labour and Conservative. So I suppose it's if you like that celebrity or not, whatever. But, you know, that might be the push that is coming now. Get the Tories out to get the Labour in. But getting the Labour in, what are they going to do? Undo some of the things the Tories did and then carry on the same way, still treating us the same, and so on, and it goes on. I just want them to go, the whole lot. And this lady says they're out of control. And that is the truth. They're all out of control. That includes the royals, the governments. It all needs to stop. It needs to stop now. Anyway, we're now going to hear Christian talk, because that's all we can do right now. We need something else in its place. We need some other way. It doesn't have them in it. But, yeah, let's carry on with the video.
You know, whether it's come out of Babel and Babylon and all that area, the rivers and banks and things that control currency, you know, it's like the fall of the angels. They taught men everything. So, you know, was there a double fall? Was there a refall? Was there a religion? All this is connected to where we are today. The whole blinking show. Yeah, and you know, I'm saying, you know, they can either do things nicely or they can do it the evil way, the satanic way. And when I seen RFB, Richard from Boston, a few years back, I think this is in 2020, and he sent out all these new vehicles. They've all got active denial on them. Well, you think, well, who's that for? Who is it for? You know, and you've got the thing that many have documented on the coffins that bury 5 people in one grave. You know what I mean? And you think, well, who's that for? You know, it's like, hello, it's a wake-up call. And you know what cult, we all know what cult was. I mean, I was probably one of the first person to say, well, this has got to be bullshit, you know, because they've been spraying our skies for a long time. And eventually that was going to have a big effect on people's immune system. You know, when you put it all together, you know that we're breathing some shit in that we haven't got the antidote to. You know, it all goes together quite well. The whole show, everything. Yeah. Well, this is where it comes back down to what are they? Who are they? And why do they do this? Is it for complete control forever and ever? You know, I mean, like many are saying that many were saying that Tartaria was just something ridiculous, but it weren't. We know it weren't because they had the technology way back, God knows how many hundreds of years ago, maybe even 1,000 years ago, where the 1,000 years went quiet for a long time. How do you get rid of them? I don't know. How do you get rid of them? The only way is what was happening. We start protesting because they begin to realise that there's some bullshit to this. Because one of the main facts was me and Matt went around town and we'd seen crashed cars. These crashed cars went into poles, lampposts, and even buildings, you know, where people either fell asleep or had some sort of attack after the injections. So all these people were probably injected and something went wrong with their bodily systems, you know. So we know what's what. And we've gone through these times before. Perhaps there's every 50 years, there's like where they ship the gold to somewhere else, you know, whatever they use it for. And there's a decline because I watched a little documentary the other day saying that all the countries are now worried about where the gold currency's gone, you know, again. And I'm going, this is getting repetitive. No, it weren't. But obviously, the Queen's gone, Philip gone, the whole family's been put into disrepute, you know, and it's not just here, it's in other countries as well, because they're still connected. And I think that's what these are. These old families, they're probably the hybrids of the fallen, whatever they are. You know, I don't know about aliens and extraterrestrials, but it's like the command structure is to keep us enslaved. I mean, we know that electricity and gas, you can recreate these, you know, they're recreated. We can recreate them. So it's something that's abundant, that's never going to die out. Yeah, yeah. This is it. Yeah. But this is what I'm saying, that this is what they do. They keep changing things through each period, and it keeps us under the cosh of expenses. You know, everything is getting scarce. You know, the air is getting scarce. You know, whatever they come up with next is everything to keep us distracted. That's what it is. It's like a distraction game. You know, and I know that for a fact that the weather has been so abnormal. That's probably why I got pneumonia. I know my bodily system had been compromised by the injections that I had, and I knew I wasn't the same when I come out of hospital. You know, after the doctor told me, yeah, we got the fucking good stuff, mate. What you buy from the shops is shit. That's what he told me. The doctor told me this. Seriously, not quite in them words, but almost. So I'm going, but you know, was he one of them? And then we realise, oh, the doctors ain't allowed to speak up. So, you know, there's a certain amount of them must be part of it, and a certain amount that didn't want to speak up because of the loss of their careers. You know, they push people to live by fear. It's horrible. It is horrible. But yeah, how did we get rid of them? No, but it is happening. It is happening. No, because these are moles. These people are moles. They pretend to be on the right side, when in fact they're batting for the side that you're not voting for, sort of thing. The side that pretends to be the truth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I know that I've got to do something else, and I probably will do to a point when I get resettled and get on my feet a little bit more. Because my mate Robert, he was in with common law, and he'd been researching it and educating himself in that department. Yeah, but these people that like Charles, as a kid, I learned you cannot serve two masters. And I get that now. I've got it now for the last 20 years, ever since I started on this trail. I'm thinking, you're right, you can't serve two masters. You're either on the side of truth or you're on the side of the lie. And it doesn't matter what the truth is. Yeah, yeah. The real people. The real people. This is what I'm saying. My entire life, I've never bumped into one person, even soldiers. Soldiers, I'm talking soldiers. They said, we don't really want war. We joined the army to get a career. And as they do join the army to get a career, to get the money, to get the education, and some of them end up in better jobs when they come out. You know, a lot of them don't join up to go to war to kill anyone. So nobody really wants war. Nobody wants to be a killer, you know, in that respect. The causes are corrupt. I mean, I just watched another video the other day or early this morning, I think it was, where all these Iraqi soldiers now are doing the same thing as what Vietnam soldiers did about 30 years ago, throwing their medals into the pit, if you like, you know, not realizing that it was an immoral war. And then when you like watch Highway to Hell in Iraq, and you think, well, these are people. They're not soldiers, they're people. And it's just genocide. And we have heard, yeah, I know, but the Highway to Hell, you can't unwatch that because it was mile after mile. I watched the video for about 40 minutes and I had to stop watching it because it started making me feel sick, because you could see that so many vehicles were hellfired on. Whatever there's hellfire on, I think is DEWS, DEWS, you know, the new weaponry. You know, and there's plenty of evidence though that happened in the past with the melted reality. But what sort of weapons were they? You know, that took out certain things. It's it's where we live, Karen. It's the place where we live. And you said it yourself 3 years ago. You thought we live in hell. You know, you can't get away from that, because it's like they run us on the hamster wheel, and it's like these cycles just keep repeating. But the thing that I saw was this cave was supposed to be 30,000 years old or 27,000 years old, and it's the same scenario. Someone had bored into the side of a mountain going upwards to make sure it was away from the water, but yet at the time that this cave was made, it was above sea level, so that there is more water here. So that presents itself to a flood. You can't get away from that. That if people lived at a lower level, and you know they did, that certain places were probably caught underneath the water. Yeah, yeah. This is what I'm saying. Is yeah. Some sort, whether it was war that did it, or whether it was mankind, or whether it was these what we call what I call the falling. With when the foot camera was first about, there's pictures, and I'm thinking it's got to be something like it, but it has to be, you know. But yeah, the world is definitely been changed time and time again. But one thing I don't know, whether it's through catastrophes or wars that have created catastrophes to make us think that way, because there's got to be more. The mining's big part of it as well. The mining for the weapons, the weaponry used to destroy this place over and over and over. You know, yeah, you're right. The mining is definitely the biggest part of what we are, where we live. It's got a lot to do with it. When you look at the pictures of Antarctica, when I first came across, I think that mountain, um, what's his name, Lundberg or whatever his name was, Lurenberg. When I watched some of his videos and what he produced, and he says that how come that all these um, what you call hollows in Antarctica are all horseshoe shaped, just like the mining of today. So it's the same principle, maybe not the same type of machinery, but very similar machinery that does the same thing. That could be part of it too. Yeah, beyond any doubt. But I mean, like when I spoke to that curator, it just made me more suspicious. And I'm thinking, even this person who's probably been priests all their lives, it's been indoctrinated to there's the type of belief that they have. Now, I'm not saying that religion is something that you shouldn't adhere to. I put it in the word of faith, and faith is something completely different. Faith is what you have in something that's good, something that means something. You know what I mean? Did you get to it? What I'm saying? It's the faith in yourself, the faith in other people, hoping, you know, it's like the song, I believe in angels, something good in everyone. You can look at the bad side too. And the minute that you do look at the bad side, you see the world for what it really is, or what it was in our past. And you begin to realize that, hang on a minute, these people are all asses. Blair was an ass, Cameron was an ass, Thatcher was an ass. You know, they're just puppet string people, you know. Are they really the real people that they present? Yeah, yeah, basically. But yeah, this cave is supposed to be 27,000 years old. So from what we were taught as kids, man was caveman. This is like the Stone Age, if you believe. But when it in this cave, it's got paintings of horses, and the horses are like they've got the mane of the horse has been procured just like today's horses, like they use at these horse shows, if you like, where it's been nicely, the mane's been nicely calibrated into certain petals or whatever. You know what I mean? I can't think of the right word to use for it now, but like it's been streamed out symmetrically. You know what I mean? Like they do children's hair or girls' hair. You know, yeah, that's it. That's the word, braided. The horse's hairs in this cave have been braided, and I'm thinking, well, we do the very same thing today. So what's changed over 30,000 years? You know, it makes you think a little bit more about what this place is. You know, they call it Earth and whatnot, that we're on a spinning ball, hurtling through space and all that bullshit. You know, yes, there might be space out there, but it's not what they say it is. Not by all the bubbles that NASA has produced in all its videos that they say, well, it's this, that, and the other. Yeah. I mean, when I was at school, I got bored with the shit I was being fed, I think. That's why I never finished school. Yes, I went to college later, but that was for myself to do various courses, you know. But yeah, it's weird. And the reality is that so many people have stopped watching the news. You know, a lot of people I speak to now, I don't watch that shit anymore. You know, COVID was one of the things that produced a bit more truth of what these beings are. You know, all right, they might be human like us, but they're puppets because they've been compromised in the way that, oh, well, I can't say anything about that because I've been compromised. And they've actually made films about this as well. Yeah. And when you discover that all the things, even where Hitler was concerned, it's the same thing, communism. Oh, we all have to comply to the same thing. Never mind the individual. The individual is not allowed to have free thinking. And that's where we're heading to with these 15-minute cities. Yeah. And it's all being orchestrated by the same beings, I think. You know, especially when you look at some of these Arab countries like Jordan and Arabia and Qatar. These countries are dominated by the same thing. You know, control systems that are really negative towards humanity rather than a positive. I think I wrote something like that on Facebook the other day about whenever there's anything to do with security, national security, and you think, hang on a minute, they're negating national security in certain ways because whenever you see these terror attacks, all the cameras seem to be off and there's never any real good footage of anything. Yeah, against us, humans, real humans. And that's why I when I first saw the catacombs, I can't remember how long ago I first saw them. I know it was a long time ago, but I thought the first thing that entered my mind, you know, when it's your gut and your gut is telling you something, that's normally what it is. If your gut tells you something, go with your gut. You know, I had that as a kid, you know, and then when I saw the catacomb rooms, I'm going, these are trophy rooms. They've been made like trophy rooms, and even the later ones. So whoever's put these bones in place, that's what they are, trophy rooms. You know, a skull and bone, 322. Now, who would do that? That would be a being that's against humans as a rule. You know, if you watch the film Predator, it's the same thing. They've got the alien in the film. It's got a trophy room, and that's exactly what these catacombs are. You know, why keep all these bones? Oh, because it's a memory of what. Yeah, that's the funny part. If you're going to keep the body, why not keep the whole body? You know, that is so strange because, yeah. So to me, I'm thinking, well, you might as well just kept the skulls, but in many cases they've kept the bone. Yeah, the Eli and is it the Molex? You know, yeah. I mean, I remember the film where he goes into the future, but this is the ironic thing: was he going into the future with the Eli or the Molex? And we know Molech, what Molech was. These were Molech was the being that ate babies. So we're taught by history. So where they're showing us the past rather than the future. You know, the dumb humans who are peace loving, you know, but when the frequency went out, they became dumb. And you look what's happening today, even with the kids. They're so indoctrinated to frequency, it's unreal. It really, it, I don't know what to say about it, but it's like they can't take their imagination. Yeah, it is what it is, and I'm glad that one of the friends that I have, she kept her kids away from the iPads, the iPods, the phones, and whatnot until they were a bit older. Which I suppose this is what teaches you to have an imagination, have a self-interest. Yeah, if you give a child too early, yeah. I mean, I remember one of Oasis songs, "Don't Look Back in Anger," but it's when you wake up to the reality you're in, you do start to get a bit angry because you've been taught a lot of bullshit. And I've been saying it for about 3 or 4 years myself now. Belief is one thing, but knowing is the difference. And that's what I keep saying. I've got, even myself, I've got to try and stay grounded in what I've actually learned, know, and saw the evidence for myself. And the evidence always speaks for itself. It does not need an excuse. It does not need an alibi. If the evidence is there, that's what it is. And when you saw the melted reality, and it's not just the one we did, it's a few of the other videos that I've watched and you've probably watched that tells us there's more to this than just the sun hitting the planet or whatever. It's weaponry, isn't it? Yeah, because the Tories have been so bad in the last 12 years or so, however long they've been in power. They've actually been diabolical. So we need a new. This is what they did with Labour, though, isn't it? When Tony Blair got in, because we've had so many bad years with the Tories. Oh, we bring Labour in. What happened with Labour coming? We went to war twice or 3 or 4 times by bombing these countries. Oh, because these countries were rebelling, but by trying to be their sovereign self more so than ever. You know, they were going to create their own currency, and that wasn't allowed. So, yeah, it's all make believe. I'm afraid that's what it is, make believe. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's quite mad. But yeah, I just thought I'd let you know about this cave, and I'm thinking, well, they had braided horses like they do today. You know, and it's a good telling sign that saying, and we know that people went to safety, whether it was in the mountains, you know, whenever this flood came, because that's the one place to be in a flood, isn't it? Yeah, and it exactly, which hides what was there before, and this is what they're doing. Yeah, and it's abysmal, isn't it? It's nasty to know that, and then put something else in place to confuse you a little bit more. You know, fabricate something else to make you believe something else. But I stick with the belief of truth, and that's the most important thing. To me, it is. You know, it's harsh, a reality to know that we've been lied to. But on the what degree does it actually go to? You know, is it because they switched off some of our DNA, and that's why they introduced COVID, because people were waking back up to their true DNA? That's the problem. How did we get them out? Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna have to talk a little bit later because the kids put the telly on now. So
And that's where we leave Christian, because he's with family and children, and the children came in, and so we had to end our conversation. But Christian had rung me up about the cave. The cave meaning, they said it was 27,000 years old. But we feel, obviously, something happened, maybe the late 1700s, early 1800s. They put thousands and thousands of years on it, but it might only be just a couple of hundred. So he's very interested because when they were in the caves, there was drawings and the horse's hair had been braided, and there was things there that were a bit like today drawn on the walls. So he was saying, well, it looks like they were kind of having the same kind of life as us then. That was one part of it, and the other part is this video. Without the people, there is nothing. And until they realise it's the people who are always going to be controlled. Government. We've made videos about this. Ment in Greek is mind. So govern the mind. That's all they're there for, is to govern your mind. And until you realise that, you're going to believe what they say. We need something else now. But anyway, thanks for listening, because you shouldn't have really heard this conversation. It's just Christian was talking about things and I thought, oh damn it, I've got to put the record button on. So obviously we had to stop and start a little bit. But anyway, it's a bit of a conversation you weren't supposed to hear, but you heard. Anyway, thanks very much.
This is nasty legislation. And you have to ask, is it appropriate for a few dozen protesters? This heavy-handed legislation, is it appropriate for that number of people who do occasionally disrupt our lives? And I would argue it's not, and it's almost as if this legislation is designed instead, perhaps, to prevent millions of people from protesting, because the government knows it has lost the confidence of the public here in Britain. And in a recent poll, 2/3 of people thought the government was corrupt. Now that sort of suggests that any legislation this government tries to bring in is possibly not very well designed for the majority of people here in Britain. I'm worried that what you're doing actually is bringing legislation that when there are general strikes and when there are hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets actually protesting about the collapsing and soon-to-be privatised health system, or the fact that everybody's pay is getting squeezed apart from the bankers and the wealthy. That's what I worry about, that you're actually bringing in these laws for far more people than just the protesters. My big concern here in this House is that we have a government that is simply out of control. And they talk about protesters being out of control, but I here think it's the government that's out of control.